Jupiter Broadcasting presents this program in stereo. This episode brought to you in part by GoDaddy.com.
This week on the Linux Action Show. When the Linux Action Show thinks outside the box, we think way out. Find out about a complete open source re-implementation of AmigaOS. Plus, why Toyota is betting on Linux. And Microsoft's new ChromeOS tax strategy. All this week!
Linux Action Show!
And welcome to the Linux Action Show. This is Season 7 freaking teen, Episode 7. My name is Brian. That guy to my left. That amazing man to my left. That man with all the answers. That's Chris.
Hey there, Brian. Check this out. You gotta love this. The Motorola Zoom runs Linux. Actually, this is a Debian distro of Linux.
Oh, yeah.
Set up and running on the Zoom tablet from Motorola, normally running Honeycomb. But
No,
look,
wait. For those of you watching the video version, you know what I'm talking about. Chris, go back to the beginning there. I want to see that boot sequence again, because that's...
Isn't that beautiful?
Is it just... What does it say about me that I see a tablet and I see all those init scripts running?
Oh, dude.
And I just... Oh, that's...
There was a reason I went for
good.
that spot in the video first. I was like, that's what I want to see. But
I mean, come on, Xorg. Anything can run Xorg.
Yeah, but they even got a virtual keyboard on this
Ooh, that
thing. Now
does
it
look
looks
nice.
to me it looks a little slow because I don't think they have all the drivers optimized yet. But look at him
but
using that
that's
virtual
working.
keyboard. Yeah, right. And plus, any virtual keyboard that has a dedicated smiley button is okay by me.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, so
That's rocking.
there you go. So maybe if you end up not being a big Honeycomb fan, you'll eventually have an option to go with a Debian GNOME desktop.
Dude, that would be rocking.
Yeah, I
That
could
would
totally
be rocking.
see. I could totally see like Unity or maybe that guy was using GNOME too.
Even
but-
just GNOME 2 or KDE. Oh, XFC on a tablet would be pimp.
Now there's a good
I
argument.
would love that.
There's a good argument for a minimal desktop.
Oh, man.
All right, so again, we're saying apologies if you tuned in to watch this show live on our normal Sunday.
You
time
are not
slot.
watching it live on Sunday.
No. The B-Man's on the road right now.
I'm on the road right now, and you don't even know where I'm at. I'm traveling around the U.S. with my GPS turned off.
Are
so
you
the government
driving
can't
or are you
track me.
flying?
I'm driving.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I don't want to
fly. I don't fly anymore. That's
No.
not what I
Are
do.
you kidding me?
I like freedom.
So
I
we're shooting
drive.
this. We're shooting this on Thursday.
Gas-powered car.
Thursday, July 7th. So
Correct.
Apologies if you missed it live, but
So
we should be back at the regular time next
There
week.
is a distinct possibility that on Friday, July 8th, Red Hat will announce their acquisition of Canonical. It's possible.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure
So if
whether
we
that
miss
will
that
or won't
one,
happen. Right.
we'll catch it next week.
Mea culpa,
Yeah.
whatever, we move on.
Hey, I got a great pick from a Linux Action Show viewer, and it's I think one if you have kids too, you're gonna.
I don't want to
love.
talk about that yet. First, I want to talk about GoDaddy.com because here's the thing about GoDaddy.com.
All right, Brian.
GoDaddy.com registers websites. They also serve up websites. So if you go there, you can type in Linux.
Yeah.
And then type in another word. No, follow me here on this.
Okay.
You type in Linux.
All right.
Sasquatch. LinuxSasquatch.org or .info.
you're- all right.
LinuxSasquatch.info. Boom. You click register. You're registering it.
about
Then you type in the word Linux, all in caps when you check out. Boom. You just saved 10% off of that.
I
Then
was thinking LinuxPantsParty.com. Let's see if that's
Linux
available.
Pants Party. LinuxPantsParty.com is taken, obviously, but
No,
.info.
it's .com. Linux Pants Party is available. Somebody
How
needs to
can
take
that be available?
Someone needs to go get that and use our code Linux.
That's
save 10%.
ridiculous that that's available.
And then if you want to host it on a cheap site, Linux 20 to save 20%.
I'd be
on
willing to
hosting.
put $10 down right now that by this time next week, every single version of that is gone.
I hope so.
.info, .us, .canada.
That would be cool.
.mobi, LinuxPantParty.mobi. Pants Party, a mobile Linux Pants Party
Look,
would be awesome.
Go do that.
Go take care of that
and
for
then,
us.
show GoDaddy the love for the Linux
And then
Action
for
Show.
hosting it, Linux 2.0.
Yeah.
You save 20% off of Linux shared
Let's go.
hosting, which honestly, come on, it's so cheap. You spend like $50 a year for Linux shared hosting, some of the server plans, and then you get an additional 20% off.
It's crazy.
Are you kidding me?
It's crazy, Brian.
Crazy good, awesome, plus Danica Patrick.
How
Moving
can they
on.
stay in business with this kind of prices? It's wacky, Brian. No, thanks to GoDaddy and their
Dude, but it is
awesome
epically
support.
cheap, though.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Their business model is screwy to me, but I'm going to take advantage of it until they go out of business.
Now, check out this app I have for my Android pick this week. It's called, now you ready for this?
No.
I love the name.
Right.
Paint Commander. Because
Sounds awesome.
it sounds like Wing Commander. That's why it sounds awesome.
That's a lot like Wing Commander.
Anyways,
I love Wing Commander.
Paint Commander is a really slick app, and I'm linking to the free version, and it was sent
I
to
haven't
me.
played Wing Commander in forever. Do they have Wing Commander for Android?
Oh, I don't know, but hopefully they will soon.
They will by next week.
Paint Commander was sent to me by, I think his name is Chris Johnson. He's the author of this app, and he's a fan of the Linux Action Show, so I wanted to give him a plug. But also, it's essentially an app that lets you just brush on there as a canvas and use different brushes and colors and
Looks really straightforward.
And different stencils and things like that. And it is the ultimate toddler little entertainment thing.
Yeah, just doodle on it.
I put it on the Galaxy tab, and he just sits there on the Galaxy tab and just goes to town on that thing. So it's fun just to screw around with anyways, but if you do need to entertain somebody quickly, that's a good one, and that's called Paint Commander, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Oh, that's way cool.
Yeah, all right, B-Man.
That's way cool. All right, now my pick this week is going to be both controversial and entirely not surprising. Last week, you'll remember that we talked about this application, which I will reveal to you momentarily, in great detail. We talked about new news about this application, new releases, and new upcoming releases, and we mentioned how impressed we were. Yeah. Well, over the week, I've been using said application and replacing said application's main competitors that I had been previously using with said application.
And you use this application
said application. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Now, so in that way, and you've all heard of said application.
Yeah.
Nobody hasn't heard of this.
Why are we not telling you what it is?
I thought, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah, all right.
So what I was thinking here was this. The Linux app picks are not just for talking about some weird application you've never heard of, right?
All right.
It's also for highlighting the best, right?
Okay, all right.
The coolest application.
I remember when you said that.
The things that really rock.
Yeah.
My app pick this week, VirtualBox.
Whoa.
And here's why.
Why is that controversial?
Because, well, I don't know. Maybe someone likes VMware like something else a lot. I don't know. But anyway, VirtualBox, it's been improving so rapidly. Mm-hmm. It's been getting so great. And for guys like us, where we're constantly installing new Linux distros all the time, and nowadays with GNOME 3 and KDE and so many other distros really needing 3D hardware acceleration, you're just not going to get that to the same level in any of the other emulation environments.
The 3D acceleration, I just love that because
great.
There's just, like you were saying, Unity, for example, needs 3D acceleration.
Exactly. Yeah. So in order for us to really review KDE, to really review Unity and Compiz related effects, we either have to install bare bones metal, which is a pain in the butt.
But you know what? We often go that route too.
We have to. Yeah. We have to a lot. But if we just want to do a quick checkout of a new alpha release of a distro, we can throw it in VirtualBox, get full 3D acceleration most of the time. Not always, but most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
And it works really well.
Yeah.
That's damn impressive. And they're adding things to it that I use the most in VMware, like snapshots and the like, and it just is awesome.
They're really aggressive too about keeping up with the not just Linux, like we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. Something they implemented improvements for support on GNOME 3. But they're also implementing across the board. You know, they were aggressive with their Windows 7 support when Windows 7 shipped. They've been aggressive with the Lion support for the next Mac OS, and they've been fantastic on the Linux side. Plus, one feature we don't really ever talk about it because it doesn't fit in the context of any of our reviews. But VirtualBox has that feature where you can turn on the remote desktop.
Yes,
and you can RDP using the RDP client.
Right into it without having an RDP server running
like
in
having
your
a console, which is super nice if you want to run it headless or if you just want to work on it from another machine.
So cool.
So I really like VirtualBox, and of course they've been
so cool.
They've been rocking their support.
I love it. You know, and there was a time when VirtualBox it was kind of a pain to use, and it got a little buggy. But you know what?
Yeah,
they fixed that.
And a lot of little UI things,
so much better.
Like with ISO, CD ISO
disk management. Disk management in VirtualBox was a little clunky.
It was really rigid
on.
Before.
Now it's much more flexible. It's nicer. Anyway, I just have to give my shout out to everyone who works on VirtualBox. Well, the heck done.
Absolutely.
We could not do what we do without you guys right now.
Yeah, and that goes for on the business side too. I've used them a lot in business. So
and half of all the SDKs I use for different platforms utilize VirtualBox in some way.
Yep, absolutely.
It's an amazing tool right now, and I just had to give it a shout out. I know you've all heard of it before, but come on, this is pretty awesome. I promise the next time I do one, it'll be some crazy weird little app that you've never heard of before that is strictly for like cataloging toenails or something. But this one
actually, this is actually a question we've gotten. I haven't got it as much lately, but a lot of times we'll get, hey guys, which virtualization should I use? Should I use VMware? I know it's proprietary, but I think it has some better features. I think or should I use VirtualBox? It's free, but it doesn't have all the features. I think it's pretty solidly in VirtualBox's court now.
It is now.
So that's awesome.
And before I used to go back and forth. Yep. And there's a free version of VirtualBox and a non-free, which really just has a couple of extra bits, mostly for like USB support for the non-free version of VirtualBox.
And the remote desktop thing.
And I really don't have any issues with using either of them. Both there's the full source code is available essentially for the whole thing with a few tidbits that have some licensing issues.
I'll give you a caveat on the server side. There's some kind of big fundamental features that are missing with the open source edition. On the desktop, they don't really impact you that much, but it's like, there's some things that I've definitely hit a wall on in the open source edition. But that all said, you know what? Still a great thing.
Still great.
All right, B-Man, let's do the news.
What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian, our top story on the news docket for this week is a fun one.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome.
Toyota joins the Linux Foundation. And actually is a gold member too, which is rather high up there in the old chain. And here's what Toyota had to say about it. And I just love this quote.
This is great.
Right out of the Toyota mouth, it says, Linux gives us the flexibility and technology maturity we require to evolve our in-vehicle infotainment and communication systems to address the expectations of our customers.
Booyah.
Yeah,
right there.
He goes on to say that they think that Linux can be used as a common platform so that they're not building this island they're investing in and then like the industry can just pass them by. If they sort of hitch themselves to this common open technology platform, then as the rest of the industry innovates, they'll be able to succeed.
And actually, here's something else. Continuing the quote, the Linux Foundation provides us with a neutral forum in which we can collaborate with the world's leading technology companies on open innovation that accelerates that evolution. Basically, what they're looking at is they're saying, you know what, we don't necessarily want to hitch our bandwagon to anyone, distro and to Red Hat or Canonical or Novell or any of these other folks. We're just going to say, Linux Foundation, we want to hitch our bandwagon to Linux, and then work with whatever's the best, whatever makes sense at any given time, and work within the greater Linux community. And that's cool. I dig that.
I'm a big fan of Linux Foundation. So, they got established in 2007, and now they are the ones paying Linus's paycheck. They're keeping, they're employing him to work full-time on the Linux kernel. They also are heavily involved with the Amigo stuff. So these guys are really cool. Plus, they put on the conferences. We've talked to a couple of their reps at Linux Fest before.
Way cool.
And they got a great site as well. So a link to all of that in the show notes. And cool for Toyota to come on board. Now,
yeah, good on you, Toyota.
Now, you could take something like Toyota and then compare it to something like what Microsoft is doing lately. There's been a couple of stories this week.
You could do that, couldn't you?
Have you seen these stories like Microsoft's making $5 off of every Android device and stuff?
Yeah.
Coming out a lot. The story, in fact, we have a follow-up story
Which
next.
only makes me think, man, I wish I could make $5 off of every Android
I know, right?
device.
Especially when they're claiming 500,000.
Here's a curious thing.
Yeah, all right.
Think about this.
Okay.
Just pure hypothetical. In this hypothetical world, and this is for all the listeners out there, close your eyes. Even if you're driving, just close those eyes.
Ooh, that's
No. Close your eyes.
All right.
And imagine, even if you had to be a real jerk, and every real nerd in the world would hate you, but in exchange, you get $5 for every Android device sold, would you do it? That's a lot of scratch.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to take that kind of hatred? Like the whole world would be like, that guy, that jerk. He's going after all these people for patents. He's doing all this, but you get $5 for every Android device.
Am I already crazy rich? Or am I like poor like I really am?
I guess that's true. Let's go you're poor.
Well, then I'd probably do it.
You'd do it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but if I'm crazy rich...
It then doesn't matter.
Right.
So this is what I thought about. I was thinking long and hard about this. Microsoft is crazy rich.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when we laugh at them, they're like, oh, ha, ha, Windows Vista sales did not meet expectations.
Right.
They made so much money. Like, they made so much ridiculous money, it's not even funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they're doing fine. They're doing fine. So really, it's kind of jerky that they're doing it.
I kind of think so.
But if it was like some small little company that was struggling to make it, then I don't know if I could blame them.
You know what
like,
it is?
I just still wouldn't like it, but I don't know that I could blame them.
It feels like Microsoft is going through a perfect like IBM transition where they're going to go from a industry, we're the main manufacturer of the goods for this industry to we're now becoming an IP shop, more of a research place, that kind of stuff. But so check this out. So the pockets they're reaching a little deeper, B-Man, because now word on the street is they're also going after ChromeOS.
No.
And looking for patent licensing deals for ChromeOS. Yeah, check this out. So
what can ChromeOS possibly have patented?
Linux.
It's a web browser.
It's Linux.
It's just Linux?
It's Linux. Check this out.
No.
Well, yeah, I know. So the details go as this. By the way, Velocity Micro and Anoco also recently agreed for Android tablet to license IP from Microsoft for Android tablets. That wasn't really covered, at least I hadn't seen that. And also a U.S. military contractor called General Dynamics also is licensing IP from Microsoft because of the use of Android. And it's guesstimated that they're paying somewhere between $7.50 to $12.50 per device.
Yikes.
So There's a company out of Taiwan called Winstron, and I think I might be getting that wrong, but they are spun off from Acer back in 2000. And Acer still uses them to produce some of their machines, like these new Chrome notebooks.
Okay.
And so Winstron or Winstron, however you say, they started working on the
Wiztron.
Yeah, they worked. They were a Wiztron. Okay, they worked on the AC700.
I looked at it. I wanted to add the N too. I'm like, that can't possibly be right. They meant to call themselves Winston.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I
was thinking Winston. So they launched the Chromebook AC700, or they're going to launch it. No, they did launch it. No, they're launching it on the 11th. It was delayed. It was supposed to be launched in June. That's right.
Right.
And it's coming out on July 11th. And one of the rumors it's been delayed is because of this licensing thing. Now, Wistron hasn't actually said how much they're going to pay for the Chrome notebooks, but pretty interesting here. And also, there's rumors that other companies are looking to license for ChromeOS. And then there's also a story coming out about Microsoft getting $200 million in US dollars from Samsung just for the Galaxy S smartphone alone for their use of Android.
Man, and Microsoft's not the only company doing this kind of stuff.
No,
but they're doing it a lot.
Apple does it.
Does it feel like eventually companies are going to be taxed so much per device from these other companies that it's just not going to be worth it to them to produce new devices anymore? And we'll just see all devices will just cease to be produced because no one can afford it.
That's their hope.
That's terrible.
And you know these.
But I mean, there's so many patents, like the basic patents. Like you remember when in the early '90s, when Microsoft and Apple was like going after Microsoft because Apple's like, you guys can't use Windows. You can't use Windows on your operating.
Or the trash
Are
icon?
you using a mouse?
The recycle icon.
Yeah, and they went after them for using a mouse with, and Microsoft's like, are you joking me?
Well,
think about this though. At the time, there was like 30 different companies that had patents on the trash icon.
Remember that company that's going after Google for like some basic paging in and out of memory patents?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, but here's the thing.
Crazy simple stuff.
I look at this, B-Man, and I totally know why they're not going after Google directly, because the people in the whole Android manufacturing chain...
Oh, wait a minute. I should say, to everyone who was driving previously, when I told you to close your eyes...
Open them.
Open your eyes.
Open your eyes.
All right, continue.
So... the people that make the least amount of money...
Nice job.
Thank you.
That was good.
in the whole Android chain, the whole economy, are the manufacturers, I believe. Because they... See, Google, if you license the Google bits, they get a fee there. Plus, they make cut on every app that's sold, right? There's a lot of areas in ads, and they serve ads. There's a lot of areas where Google makes sustainable revenue on the hardware. Whereas when HTC sells an Evo, they just have to build something where they can make their markup, and that's where they make their profit. There's no ongoing revenue stream there.
Yeah.
And so when Microsoft goes after HTC, which we know Microsoft, I believe, is the word out there on the street is at $5 per HTC device.
It's a lot.
And when they're going after these other guys, and like this one company, $12.50 per device, that's got to cut into that revenue line. I mean, this is the same situation Dell's in, and why Microsoft was able to leverage so much power over Dell with the pricing of Windows.
Yeah.
It's almost the same exact situation. They're trying to reestablish that original position of power, but now instead of having the software that they need as the lever, they have patents.
Yeah.
It's kind of poo.
It is kind of poo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot good to say about it.
I know
it's just kind of poopy.
I know it's business, but...
yeah, I know. I feel weird about it. You know, it's... Here's a good example.
Okay.
So over the last 10 or 15 years, I've been involved in a couple of pretty cool projects.
Sure.
Projects doing all sorts of randomly cool things for like little startups for my own business. And I've done a few things or been involved in companies that have done a few things that were new.
Yeah.
Were legitimately new and weird and obscure enough that, you could patent them. Always felt really weird patenting things. I've been involved in 2 patents so far, and both times they were obscure. They were weird, and honestly, they were not going to encumber anyone else from using something. Like they were niche. But even then, I was working on writing it up with this company I was with, and I was like, man, why on earth would I patent this? It's such a weird thing. Like the only use someone would have was to make a competing product.
Like for me,
and the competing product would have to be so niche,
right?
It would be pointless. It would be pointless to even compete with the company. So
I know in some cases, like in small business cases, the patents are considered sometimes an asset. So if the company's to be sold,
then the patents have value.
Yeah, even if they're just kind of obscure. But you look at something like the TV. The original invention of the TV, which there was a big patent dispute over, it seems like, though, but that kind of innovation, the person deserves to be credited and to make some sort of money off an innovation like broadcast television. That to me makes sense.
And honestly, at the time, that's pretty niche. That's a weird damn thing.
Yeah. But at the same time, this isn't always. I don't always feel this way about software. But software is an idea.
Yeah.
Software is an expression of language that is. I mean, it's weird. It's different when you patent software. You're patenting a concept. You're patenting an idea, and you're patenting.
Yeah, that's really what it is, isn't it? Yeah,
and that's a weird thing to...
I look at software like I make Illumination. That's what I make. It's copyrighted because I wrote it. Like if I wrote a novel.
Yep, exactly.
If I had written a science fiction novel instead, it wouldn't be trademarked. Or I guess it would be, but it wouldn't be patented. It wouldn't have a patent, so no one else could ever make a sci-fi novel with a really cool spaceship in it.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. But you'd be copyrighted, so no one could copy what you did.
Yeah, so that's why I always get weirded out about software patents, and especially when you see them, something like this, be just beating someone over the head with it. And it always makes me worried because Microsoft's always purposefully vague to keep it scary, but they just say, involving Linux things, just involving their use of the Linux operating system as associated with Android or something like that. There's always these vague references as to what IP and all that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Let's talk about somebody who is innovating and innovating in the Linux space.
Yes, let's.
I think this is so cool. This comes from the Mint project, and specifically, you know how Mint has a bunch of different, like they have the main Mint run that's based off Ubuntu, and they also now have this new Linux Mint Debian edition.
It's kind of like the basically Mint respins, basically, just different versions.
The Debian one though is they're taking on a problem here that you and I have talked about as an issue we thought for new users, and that is especially when you're basing your distro like Debian. Like Linux Mint Debian Edition on the testing branch of Debian, updated all the time, right? The repos always have new packages in there. And as a user, you see, I have 25 new updates available, and you click on it, and you install them all, and you reboot, and maybe something breaks. But because you just installed like 20, 25 updates, you don't really generally always have a good idea of which one broke what and that kind of stuff.
Which one was the naughty package?
Yeah, but but at the same time, you want to stay current and you want to stay protected.
And you're not going to do one at a time. That's just crazy.
So the Linux Mint Debian guys over here are introducing update packs. And these are going to be frozen snapshots of the Debian testing repo that you're going to be able to go in your update manager, and you're going to be able to see these update packs, and like you'll have update pack 2, update pack 3, update pack 4, and you'll click on it, and it's going to have. This isn't just BS. This is actually in testing now. I think you have to go get a specific repo to be able to try it, but you'll be able to go in there, and you're going to be able to click on update pack information and get the pertinent details about that update, and I would assume you will also eventually be able to roll back.
Notes. And here's one thing I thought was really cool. Here's some notes like, hey, some people experience this sort of problem. Here's a quick fix for it with this update pack.
I mean, I already think Mint has one of the best software update systems available, but this with the Debian edition is just a really nice deal because it's like it lets you walk both lines. You can stay current, but you also aren't taking so much risk.
I love Mint's updater. Go back to that screenshot again real quick. I want to point this out again because so you go to the update pack. It says what's new in the update pack. It says what's available, and then below it, this is so cool to me. It's like, hey, if Flash doesn't work anymore, little icon, simply open a terminal and copy and paste this exact text. Boom, Flash works.
Yep.
If you're experiencing problems rebooting your computer, remove this exact problem.
If Firefox gets wonky after an update, you might need to nuke your profile. Here's how you can do that.
Yeah, just copy and paste the text.
And of course,
so nice.
maybe eventually for common things, the extension of that would be, click this to execute it, and then we'll bring up a pseudo dialog and fire it off.
It's kind of like they're merging together the best available things. They're not just making updates better, but they're merging in the need to go to like forums to search for like how to fix your problems. All into your update spot, so you don't have to take those extra 10 minutes to find the problem, how to fix it. It's all right there, and that's so cool.
Especially for people like me who want to run it on a machine that we use for business, but we're geeks and we want to keep it up to date too. That's just really awesome.
Come on, I update as soon as I see something available.
Let's talk about something else kind of cool that isn't out yet, but it's maybe on the way. It's got. Have you heard of Kickstarter?
Yeah.
You're familiar with Kickstarter, right? Where
Kickstarter.
You go in there, people submit
you can be like, I want to make a project where I chronicle how many times I go to the potty. And everyone's like, I need $20,000 to write this potty book. Well, and everyone's like, you know what? You do. You really do.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and chip in some money.
$50 for your potty book.
What now? Or it could be for a Linux desktop video editor called NovaCut. And
I'm not saying one's more valuable than another. I'm just saying this is one option.
They've got 22 days to go to raise funds. They've got 87 people that have donated a grand total of $3,400. But I guess they need to get to 25 grand by Friday, July 9th.
Okay.
And their whole goal is to make a
tomorrow.
What?
Or July 29th.
July 29th, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a couple weeks.
Their whole goal here is to make a modern pro editor, 64-bit support, take in HD SLR footage so you can edit stuff from like the new Canons and things like that. So I'm really hoping that this could be something that, I mean, this is something Linux just needs so bad. So I wanted to give them a mention in the show, basically. And if you're interested, go check out
go over their Kickstarter, find the NovaCut project and pledge. If you don't have to pledge a lot, but I mean, if everyone who listened to the Linux Action Show pledged $1, they'd be fine.
Yeah.
So, go on over there and take a look.
Now, another new piece of software's out there. B-Man, tell us about it here.
All right, so I'm going to try not to be too long on this because I don't want to be too self-promoting sounding, but this is really actually pretty awesome news. So I just announced Illumination Software Creator 4. Why this is cool is that we're adding HTML5, WebOS, and Windows Phone 7 support. But the real key here is that now...
When you say HTML5...
HTML5. So like in Illumination currently, you can take your project that you built for, Android or whatever and rebuild it as a Flash-based website that acts like a desktop application in a browser. So then upload it to your website. Same thing now, only pure HTML5. So you don't have to have Flash, and so it'll run great on any mobile device, whatever.
That. Oh, yeah.
So same basic thing. We're also having a full WebOS output, so you can output for the WebOS tablets.
Oh, nice.
It's built specifically for WebOS 3. They'll work on some of the previous devices, but not all of them. We're kind of going towards the future stuff.
Forward.
And we also have Windows Phone 7 support. I know most of you probably don't care, but think of it like this. You could use Illumination to build an Android app and a WebOS app and an HTML5 app. Very open source friendly, very Linux friendly platforms, and be like, you know what? I'll make it for Windows Phone 7 too, and just because I want their money. And I'll take the money from the Windows people and funnel it back into the projects that I care about a little bit more. And it supports, of course, iPhone, iPad, and Maemo and desktop Python stuff and all that still. But the reason this is cool is because you can do all this on Linux. It's a native Linux client. It's developed almost entirely on Linux. And it's the only development environment in the history of humanity that targets this many platforms natively in native code from a singular project that you can do unmodified. Nothing else has ever done this before.
That's pretty cool.
Nothing.
That's pretty cool.
Nothing. You can build an iPhone application 99.9% on Linux. The only thing you have to do in order to make it work on an iPhone is copy the darn project file over to a Mac because Apple won't let you actually click a build button for iPhone apps on Linux. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's pretty cool. We just announced it.
Yeah,
it's coming out in a couple of weeks. It's in the kind of like the final bug fixing phase right now, awesome. And it's a free upgrade. And radicalbreeze.com, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice, sir. Well, I wanted to give just a quick.
No BlackBerry support. People in the chat room are like, "Where's RIM support, Brian?" There's no BlackBerry support, or Playbook support. I don't have any of that. You know why? Because WebOS is more important.
Sure.
HTML5 is more important. Android is more important. These are important things, so they get it.
Now, just a quick Easter egg in the show notes: a link to a challenge put on by the Linux Foundation, where you can go take a quiz if you use Facebook to see if you could do Linus's job, and you also get a discount on a Linux conference ticket if you want it. So a link in the show notes for that. You can.
Have you taken it?
Yeah, I did.
How'd you do?
I did okay.
Yeah, I haven't taken it yet.
I passed, but they said I shouldn't be checking in code yet. I think I wasn't harsh enough. I think I didn't yell. One of the options was, would you yell at this guy? And I chose not to, and I think I would have. I think Linus might have. Yeah. But you can go check the quiz for yourself at the link in the show.
By default, yell at the guy.
Yeah, that's usually the way to go.
It's just the way to go. All
right, Brian. Well, that's all the news for this week. B-Man, over the last few weeks, we had a rash of distribution reviews, and then we jumped off and we tried Haiku.
That was fun.
That was, and then we tried a whole new type of Linux distribution, WebOS.
Yep.
And now we thought, let's continue the palette cleansing from the distro reviews. Let's cover one more alternative OS here.
Yeah, and now we don't want to diverge too much. This is the Linux Action Show, but there are a lot of really great open source operating systems out there that either we can learn a lot from,
That's what I was thinking,
or simply we can look at as an interesting place of where we've been, and kind of our cousins that we can all go to a conference together, get in a big group hug, and love on each other.
I always don't look at it as like competition, but I kind of look at it as a lot of times these newer or these other open source operating systems were spun up to address a need that Linux wasn't addressing. So it's interesting to look at them to see what problem are they solving that Linux hasn't been able to solve.
Absolutely.
So this one is actually, we got a couple of emails about this because way back in the Computer Action Show, we asked people, would you be interested in having us review this operating system?
Yep.
And we've gotten emails over the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years saying, yes, please do.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it. And this has been on your radar since then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I've made no bones about it. Out of the way, we're going to be reviewing AROS, AROS, the Amiga Research Operating System.
And the Broadway edition, right?
The Broadway edition.
Release.
And we'll get into that in a moment. But basically, I thought maybe we'd take a moment and review what exactly AROS is.
All right.
Are you game?
I'm totally game.
All right.
And I'm going to get schooled a little bit because you've had some time to play with this. I only played with it starting this morning. So
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So here's the background. For those of you who are not part of the Amiga world. So
people that don't follow the Amiga World blog.
So back in the 80s, the Amigas were awesome. If you were alive back then, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you were a Mac or a DOS guy or a Unix guy, you saw the Amigas and you had a little bit of lust in your heart. You really did, because they were crazy good at multitasking. I mean, crazy good at it. It was astonishing. They were fast as heck. They booted in like a second, and they had full color graphics. They were good at doing video. In fact, using an application called Video Toaster, the video production world was very Amiga-centric for years and years and years. Live broadcast television was very Amiga-heavy. In fact, I believe large portions of the Computer Chronicles were produced on an old Amiga using Video Toaster.
The Video Toaster on the AmigaOS.
Right.
Yep.
So it was a very cool system, and it had a very loyal following. Commodore, well, there was the company behind it, the fabled Commodore 64, and then the Amiga line. And there was a number of Amigas that were fantastic, of various shapes and sizes, towers and little tiny compact keyboard things, and they were great. They were great little systems. However, it was mismanaged to death, and it was bought and sold as a company about 87 bazillion times,
that's right,
give or take. And so at this point, who owns Amiga, who owns the OS, who owns the rights, has been a continually ongoing legal issue for literally about 2 decades, I think, a decade and a half, to where now there are, I believe it's Hagen Partners out of Europe, as a European company that that is producing the official Amiga OS.
Oh.
They're updating that, and then there's another project called MorphOS that's over on the other side. That's kind of a binary compatible Amiga thing. Now, but then there's AROS, the Amiga Research Operating System. The goal of the Amiga Research Operating System of AROS, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. AROS.
No, I think
AROS. I'm not sure.
Oh, I guess there's no E. I don't know.
AROS. I don't know. What do you think? AROS.
Let's go with AROS, I guess.
AROS it is. That's now the official pronunciation. Now, it came about because they wanted to have a Amiga-like system with all the benefits that Amiga had, and we'll get into all that in a second, without any of the legal problems.
Okay.
So it is a source code compatible system to the old Amiga. So you can rebuild Amiga applications for AROS, but you cannot rerun existing applications.
Okay.
And on top of that, because they went that route, they thought, you know what, we don't need to be running on these old 68K and PowerPC-based Amigas. We can run on native, 32 and 64-bit x86 chips.
Yeah.
Well, they also have, a 68K and PowerPC ports.
That's cool.
But they can go to whatever you want. So that's the whole point of AROS. Now, it started back in 95, so mid-90s. Now, think about this for a second. When this project started, it was Windows 95 time.
Yeah, it was.
And Linux was old. I mean, it was way back when. Linux was still fairly young.
Yeah.
It was
very
not
young.
It still had a lot of issues. It was definitely not something that any user could pick up and run with.
No,
it
not
was
95.
Like in 1995, honestly, I think that was early Slackware time.
Yeah, that was like when it was still pretty hardcore, pretty rough.
Super hardcore. So really,
although, I can imagine there's probably a lot of people watching this show who are saying, "Nah, I was running back then."
Yeah.
I could see that.
I totally can see
our
that.
viewers-
But you know what?
Yeah.
Those people are cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Those people are just
All right,
extra cool.
so not to
Anyway,
derail.
yeah. So that's when the thing started. Now, it took several years. And at one point over the last couple of years, and this is a couple of years now, maybe 3 or 4 years, it's basically done.
Yeah.
Like the system itself achieved its goal. It is basically an AmigaOS 3.1 clone, for lack of a better word.
And that's you can only get so far with that.
And you can only get so far with that. Yeah. So they're kind of adding new stuff on top of that. But they basically have recreated the AmigaOS in a kind of license-free way. There's not the legal issues that encumber other things. And as a point of that, the motto of AROS is no schedule and rocking. Which makes fun of the phrase on schedule and rocking, which if you're a part of the Amiga community, you know Bill McEwen, who at one point was the CEO of Amiga Incorporated, he might still be actually, I don't know exactly how the legal ramifications of that worked out, was talking about how they were on schedule and rocking for releasing a new version of AmigaOS, and it never happened.
Awesome.
So AROS
Good
was
callback.
no schedule and rocking, and it happened. And it released, and it's great. So all that said, that is the background of this system. This system runs, again, on all your x86 machines. It'll run pretty much on any x86 desktop. You might just be using VISA video drivers, but to be honest, for an Amiga-like system, that's actually not that big of a deal.
Yeah. It'll actually do a nice res, and it's got a couple of different options so you can play with it at boot up, because it was a little touchy with mine. So
it was a little touchy?
Yeah.
So, but I thought, let's take a look at it. I want to know what you think of this system. Well, and I want to kind of talk over some of the benefits of it versus, what we're using on Linux.
So we're looking at a spin of AROS called Broadway, right?
Right.
And this is sort of,
think of it like a distro. It's like
exactly.
Ubuntu is to Debian.
And it seems like a very media focused approach here, because he's included like a media center application that he's also working on and things like that.
Yes.
And I say he because I think it's one guy again.
It's pretty much just one guy.
But it's astounding how running through the system, I come across things, first of all, very fast, but I come across things that kind of give me the sensation of Windows 95 with a GTK theme. I can almost kind of see like an influence of Windows 95 here, an influence of GTK.
Okay.
And I don't know, but all that said, I haven't really done much with it other than get up and going, and it was very easy to get running, and seems to be very peppy. And I also stumbled across the Media Center app, and it's kind of neat.
And the Media Center app is actually fairly surprising in its capabilities. Like if you put it on a decently powered machine, it does fairly well. It connects up to network shares, streams, pulls in and plays your video and your audio. He's adding in a lot of decent features. You could use this as an Xbox XBMC style replacement.
And I guess
system.
that's really kind of what Amiga's strong point was back in the day, is that it was your multimedia platform. So
it totally was. Like the Amiga 1200s back in the day was that Commodore 64 style computer and a keyboard that you could hook up to your television as your primary usage.
Yeah.
So your kids could just plug it into their TV, sit down and use it, play a lot of games on it with their joysticks, or just sit around and play with whatever cool tools you wanted to do, painting programs and the like. Now
it's insanely fast. I mean, I know the apps that it's launching are not all that complicated, but
it's psychotically fast. Well, like for instance, even if
the second my mouse button comes off of the second I release,
like load the calculator.
All right.
It's right there.
The second, quite literally, like the moment I release the mouse button, the application is loaded.
Now, and going a step further, did you notice how quickly it booted?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Now we showed it last time when we reviewed Haiku, how quickly Haiku booted, and we're like, damn, that boots fast. Now every Linux distro for the last 12 years has been like, we're making it boot faster, and that's been like a #1 feature, and we've kind of made fun of that. I mean, it is nice. We want to boot faster.
Yeah.
But then you try something like literally like AROS, and it boots in like 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Tops.
It's kind of nuts.
Like literally cold boot through the BIOS delay and into the system, fully usable, everything loaded in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
It's insanity.
This isn't like a DOS terminal, but it's not Bash
It's
either,
Amiga
right?
DOS.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah.
If you come from a Unixy world, you'll feel pretty much at home.
Yeah, there's no LS, but there's a dir, for example.
It's Amiga DOS.
No top.
It's its own particular thing. But if you're an Amiga guy, you'll feel right at home because it's Amiga DOS.
Yeah.
So now here's just a couple of things that are interesting about AROS that I think I think I would like to see in current Linux distributions.
Okay, lay it on
The
me.
first and foremost things is the RAM disk.
Yeah, okay, this is really neat.
So a RAM disk literally is a RAM disk. So you can create a RAM disk on every platform. Every platform has this capability. You'll have to install a couple of apps and libraries to do it, but every platform has this capability. You can set the RAM disk size to whatever you want. So you load up and you have this RAM disk on your AROS workbench. This is your workbench.
Right.
It's basically the equivalent of Explorer on Windows or your shell or your basic desktop environment on Linux. In the top left-hand corner, by default, is always your RAM disk. You size it to whatever you want. Obviously, it's a RAM disk. It's just a disk that represents some space in RAM instead of on your hard drive or a floppy.
This is interesting because it already has like a file system on it.
Yeah, it preloads. Yeah. It preloads some items into it. Your clipboards and other things like that. Here's the cool bits about it. Let's say you want to install a new application, but you don't know if you want to keep it. Install it to your RAM disk.
Oh, plus I'm sure insane performance.
Insane performance because the files it's hitting are actually pulling off of RAM. So if you're pulling movie files, you're editing movie files, you're pulling pictures,
How big is it though? I mean, is it a set size?
It's whatever size you want.
Okay.
So you set the RAM disk size, you configure it, and then you have your RAM disk size. So if you've got a huge amount of RAM, you can dedicate a significant chunk to a RAM disk.
And it's so nice. That is so, I mean...
What if you have a database? You stick your database in a RAM disk. You're always hitting it in RAM. It's never writing it back to the hard drive.
I could see people...
Now you reboot, it's gone. So you have to back stuff off of it if you want to back stuff off of it.
It does kind of sound like TempFS, only I think the thing that's interesting on this is that this is a little bit of it's a kernel level implementation here, and I think, well, actually I'm not sure about TempFS, but what I do know this is it's out of the box, for one, and two,
it's very easy to use.
I think it's interesting the way they've seemed to essentially have, it's not just a storage mechanism, it's been pre-populated with some data like my clipboard.
Yeah.
So my clipboard contents go into here.
Go as files into there.
And that's it's more of a complete system integration.
It's a visual way to get at certain things within your RAM disk. I mean, stuff is stored in the RAM disk.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting concept. And again, this is totally possible on Linux and a variety of other things.
Oh, yeah.
It's just how easy do you make it to use?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can do it on every OS.
For instance, what would be interesting is, wouldn't it be cool to load up Synaptic? Well, I guess like if you're on Ubuntu, you can't use that for very much longer. But let's say you apt-get. You want to apt-get some new cool tool, which, by the way, is fun to say.
New cool tool.
You get some new cool tool.
Yeah.
And instead, you say, maybe do a flag and say, install this to just my RAM disk.
Yeah.
And throws it on the RAM disk and doesn't throw it anywhere else. Now, that's fairly difficult because packages tend to write things all over the place. So that becomes a little bit clunky, but it's really an interesting idea, and it would be technically possible because then you could just be like, you know what, I didn't like that, or I did, and I want to install it now to my actual hard drive, or I just reboot and it's gone. It's just kind of a cool way to go.
Or like a lot of times on my desktop, I end up with like a lot of little files that I'm just working on for a project, like a video editing project or something like that. And I got like little images or all this kind of stuff I'll just collect, and I need fast access to them while I'm working on that project, but after I'm done, I don't need them anymore at all.
Now, some people are talking in the chat room, you can have /tmp, or your temp folder, set to be a RAM disk. And you totally can do that, and like I said, it's totally possible. And honestly, I think that's a great idea. I recommend a lot of people do that because then you reboot, you're not left with clutter in that temp directory, and it's a lot faster that way. But to be able to have a nice visual way, to have something on your desktop that's just like, here's my RAM disk, pop it open. It's just a nice way to use it.
I think that is a pretty neat implementation.
Now, the general UI toolkit is something called, let me see if I've got this up here.
Fugly, because it's not that good.
Well,
looking.
it's called Zune.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Zune. Now, here is the default Zune theme. Now, sorry if you guys listen to the audio show.
It kind of looks like a really old Qt.
It's old. That's kind of how I look at it. It's like GTK1 with some gradients.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's old looking. There's no doubt about it.
It's like not quite one. It's not one flavor over the other, but there's some hints there if you're familiar with those older ones.
Hints from a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Now, really, though, it's pulling from Amiga. I mean, that's what it's doing. It's pulling from AmigaOS, and it's modified and it's updated a little bit, but it's really pulling from the old AmigaOS. It's functional, but kind of ugly by today's standards. Well, honestly, a lot ugly by today's standards. But that said, it's very fast. It's very lightweight, and there's something to be said for that. And you can make it look great.
What would you think the practical use of like on a more what would you use Amiga? What would you use this OS for?
I have no
okay.
idea.
I thought maybe you had.
This is the issue I'm coming up against. So I like with Haiku, it's very fast. It's very.
Wow.
I didn't expect to see that.
No.
Screensaver just came up. We're not going to switch over to you, but it's not exactly safe for work.
That's
I was
funny.
not expecting that in this particular
I wish we could show
distribution.
that. Oh,
yeah.
but that's cool.
That's better.
Check that, although she might show up.
All right.
Again,
We'll just show that for a minute.
Yeah.
It was like a little mermaid with little stars over her whoo-hoos and, okay. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so what would I use this for? I don't know. Other than it is fun. Other than it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
And honestly, is it a totally workable system? Yes, it's got a web browser, it's got media playback applications, it's got a lot of open source applications ported over. There's a lot of great games you can get for it. It has, built in, if you want the full Amiga experience, you can run UAE, the Amiga emulator here. So you can run classic 68K Amiga applications in kind of a multitasking environment alongside your x86 AROS applications.
There's something intellectually satisfying about jumping into a completely different take on an operating system, and something that for a long time was very prominent. And there's just something about when I go into Amiga and I think, oh, this could have been a completely different way I would have interacted with my computer if this had gone mainstream. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's fun, especially now we're kind of on this point where things are transitioning to mobile and touch and portable, and as that just seems to be like this new area of innovation, a new UI design, at the same time going back now, and it's almost like studying history to kind of figure out what will work in the future in a lot of ways.
Totally,
and I kind of dig that about digging into these old alternative operating systems.
I'll throw up the screenshot here. So just another look and feel of AROS. I mean, there's just a lot of...
And that one's a little more gray.
It's a little more gray, and there's just a lot of different ways you can go. Honestly, the old gray style is very old Amiga Workbench. That's kind of the old Amiga Workbenches were very, very gray, clean lines, square, gray. That was the old style. Things have changed a lot over the years. So, but again, I don't know necessarily what to use this for, other than the footprint for this system is insanely small.
Oh.
I mean, of course, Linux can be super tiny, but the footprint here really, I think it needs about 2 megs of RAM to run well.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's what I'm saying.
For a full graphical environment.
For a full graphical environment, and it works pretty well in that small amount of RAM.
Dang.
So, and that's great. So if you were running, and it runs again on PowerPC, 68K, x86, 32, and 64-bit.
I could also see as more and more distros pull away from PowerPC support. A lot of people have old Macs. You could throw this on there.
Yeah. And it's fun to play with. It's nerd playing time.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily there's anything that you can do here that you can't do on any other platform. But think about this for a second. You load this up. You got full networking.
Yeah.
You got web browsers.
Yeah.
You got a full development
environment. Chat programs. There's email programs.
Chat programs. There's Twitter clients. There's Facebook clients.
Wow.
There's a version of VLC. You can play back your XVids, your MKVs. You can play games. You can play honestly, ports of Quake 3.
I would take this and I would load it like if I was at a school district. I would go like they have those super old original old school iMacs. Those like gumdrop ones and stuff. You could totally load something like this on one of those and get a nice usable web terminal out of it.
You totally could.
Yeah.
But here's the amazing thing.
It'd probably be peppier than in Linux, even though you could do it with Linux too.
As a system, this is really a re-implementation of a system that really in all honesty, hasn't been updated much since the early 90s. 20-some years.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there have been updates, but really, from a technological standpoint, this isn't capable of anything that wasn't possible 20-some years ago.
It's kind of interesting how the conventions are pretty similar still.
From the flip side of it, this obviously, I would never switch to this. I think it's super cool, and I run it, and I have a VirtualBox of it, and I love to tinker with it. It's so much fun. But on the other side of the fence, there's not a whole lot I can do on Linux, Windows, or Mac that I can't do on AROS. Not a whole lot.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff.
Running more modern software, but you got the full web browser. You can load up your Gmail. You can do all sorts of stuff that you can do everywhere else.
That's true.
I mean, what?
Well, that's really thanks to the internet and web apps. That's not really...
it's not just the web apps, though. Like an IRC client or an FTP client or
there's
basic
all
text editors.
Yeah, those are all
GUI-based video software development systems, video editors, audio editors, cool image editing applications, graphical development environments. I mean, everything is in here. Lots and lots and lots of
You know what it says to me? It says to me that a platform can have all of those things and still go nowhere. That's kind of interesting. So it's not just those things that make a platform successful.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it blows me away.
That's a lesson to think of in Linux terms as well.
I'm not sure what it is, but is it... Sometimes this makes me feel nostalgic for how far we've come, and at the same time, how very unfar we've come.
Right.
It's like we haven't really progressed all that far. And we keep adding new UIs to things. We keep changing the way things look a little. But really, the same things are possible that have been possible since the late 80s, early 90s.
Isn't that kind of true?
On most systems.
I think, isn't that kind of true of any industry?
Flying toasters.
Whoa, check that out.
Go right back here. AROS Broadway edition, the Broadway distro, which we'll have links to, has a version of the Flying Toasters screensaver right built in.
A knockoff, but a great one.
A knockoff, but a good looking
now that
one.
takes me back.
Yeah.
That's
it. I changed my mind. It's worth running this for that.
Yeah. That's really, I think that's actually a good spot for me to wrap up. I think for me, it's a toy, and it's interesting to look at it, and it's also, like I said, some lessons could be learned for Linux.
Yeah. My favorite is the RAM disk. That's my favorite feature of the whole thing.
Check out the links in the show notes. You can download the ISO, run it in VirtualBox, have some fun with it. And there you go.
It's pretty awesome. And the cool part is it's pretty stable.
Yeah.
The AROS you're going to run now is probably not going to be any different than the AROS you run maybe 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So if you like it, you're good to go forever. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and props to the guy that's making the Broadway distro. It seems to be pretty cool.
And I do know that there's a lot of Amiga users out there that are stubborn as hell, and they want their Amiga. So at least this lets them buy a new PC and run it. And would this run good on a netbook? Yeah,
probably.
It really would.
Probably would.
It really totally would.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that, but it probably would.
Yeah, probably would.
There you go. That's really all I had to say about it. It's worth checking out. It's kind of cool. And if you've got other platforms, other operating systems, other open source systems that you think we should take a look at that aren't Linux, but that you think Linux could learn from, or maybe Linux users would just have fun with, let us know. Head on over to the forum at jupitercolony.com, go in the Linux Action Show forum, and tell us about it. Because, honestly, there's a lot that Chris and I have run, but we're finding there's a lot of weird systems out there that we have yet to touch, and we want to play with them because they're cool.
Now, one thing I thought they asked in the chat room if it has Wi-Fi support. Let me just double check, because they have this handy little dandy network admin tool. Oh, of course, on a VirtualBox, it won't tell me if I have Wi-Fi support, but they do give you like a nice interface to set your... Oh, it's got a wireless tab.
It does wireless.
So there you go.
Yeah,
and it even has a mobile broadband tab.
I think it's very limited in its driver support, just like Haiku and a lot of other platforms.
Well, there you go. Right.
But yeah, you could throw this on a netbook, assuming that you really well investigated your hardware support. I mean, carefully, but I bet you there's got to be a netbook or two out there that would work great.
Oh yeah. There you go. There's our look outside the Linux box.
Just don't expect any spinning virtual desktop cubes, because you are not going to get that.
No compass.
No compass. There you go. And that brings us to the end of this week's amazing broadcast. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, the Colony, jupitercolony.com, awesome. Twitter.com. Brian Lundo, Chris LAS, it's awesome. You can also find us over on Google Plus now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't know. How do people get to that? No, it's like there's like G+.2 or something like that.
Oh yeah, G2 dot, I don't know.
G2.plus.
G+.2.
If you're curious,
I think you could just Google search our names.
Yeah, Google search our names maybe, and they'll come up. Yeah, but we're over on Google Plus trying it out. I know. But Brian, you're trying to get away from Google. Well, it's a toy, and I want to play with it. Look at it. Yeah. I'm weak, guys. What can I say? I'm a very weak man.
Would you rather, if you're going to rant against something occasionally, you eventually got to know how to use it.
You got to know how to use it.
Actually, I kind of have we might cover this. We're doing Jupiter at Night again. Yep. It's a big cast now. B-Man's in there, I'm in there, and Jeremy's in there. All 4 of us,
yeah. It's crazy.
I was thinking if we have time, I have a Google Plus rant. I might try to slip into that.
No
episode.
way.
Maybe if we have time.
You're blowing my mind here.
I want to talk about a couple of projects that we'll probably be covering on the show as I'm working on them, because I'm not going to talk about them until I'm done, and I don't know when I'm going to be done with them. But
I don't know when you're going to be done with either.
Yeah. Speaking of the J-Man. He wants to build a FreeNAS box. I have an old machine he has, so I'm gonna hook him up with a FreeNAS build, and their new version, the FreeNAS A.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And I'll give a review on Linux Action Show that we'll have that coming up soon.
That'd be real. And then
something else I'm trying is I'm building a little dedicated Atom with a with a nice big GPU on it, Bitcoin mining machine, and I want to take a Bitcoin Linux Coin Live CD and use that tool UNetBoot that I'm sure a lot of people know about, and make a live USB bootable stick. So I don't have to have a spinning media. I can just have a board with no attached media except for a USB key.
So you could put this into this little tiny Atom machine and have a quick booting Bitcoin mining monster.
I want to give that a shot. So when I figure that out, which will be sooner than later, I'll cover how I was able to make a live CD.
You're going nuts over ridiculous on this Bitcoin stuff.
It's fun, and then the cool thing about Bitcoin
is, if you get mega rich, I'm gonna kick myself on it.
The cool thing about Bitcoin is the community is really into Linux.
Yeah,
and there's a performance advantage on running on Linux and all that kind of stuff. So it's neat for a Linux geek to get, because you get to double dip.
It's way the heck groovy.
All right, B-Man. Well, I think that just about wraps up this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. But we'll see you right back here.
What did you just do there?
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
Thank you, sir.
That's a thing.
Okay.
Do that next time.
All right, okay.
I liked that.
All right, I'll try to remember.
And if you like the tell us.
There you have it. And we'll see you right back here next Sunday.
Hey, John, you want to not screw up all the time? I can hear you judging. Here we go. Chris, you're judging all over your brain right now. Season 17, episode 7. Favorite season ever.
Dude, the best.
Favorite episode ever. Rock and roll.